The period of the imperial Cholas was an age of continuous improvement and refinement of the Dravidian art and architecture. They utilized their prodigious wealth earned through their extensive conquests in building long-lasting stone temples and exquisite bronze sculptures. Introduction. The Cholas continued the temple-building traditions of the Pallava dynasty, who were themselves influenced by the Amaravati school of architecture. The Chola artists and artisans further drew their influences from other contemporary art and architectural schools and elevated the Dravidian temple design to greater heights. The Chola kings built numerous temples throughout their kingdom, which normally comprised the Koveri plains, central and northern Tamil Nadu, and at times the entire state of Tamil Nadu, as also adjoining parts of modern Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. In the evolution of the Chola temple architecture we can roughly see three major phases, beginning with the early phase, starting with Vijayalaya Chola and continuing till Sundara Chola, the middle phase Rajaraja Chola and Rajendra Chola when the achievements scaled heights never reached before or since, and the final phase during the Chalukya Chola period of Kulochenga Chola I till the demise of the Chola Empire. The Cholas, in addition to their temples, also built many buildings such as hospitals, public utility buildings and palaces. Many such buildings find mention in their inscriptions and in contemporary accounts. The Golden Palace that Aditya Karikala supposedly built for his father Sundara Chola is an example of such a building. However, such buildings were of perishable materials such as timber and fired bricks and have not survived the ravages of time. Early Chola period, Pallavas were the first recognizable South Indian dynasty who indulged in the pursuit of architectural innovations. The first seeds of Dravidian temple architecture in Tamil Nadu were possibly sown during this period. The temple architecture evolved from the early cave temples and monolith temples of Mamallapuram to the Kailasanatha and Vaikunthaperumal temples of Kanchipuram. This architecture style formed the foundation from which the Cholas, who were in close contact with the Pallavas during their periods of decline, took some valuable lessons according to Nilakanta Sastri, in his A History of South India. The early Cholas built numerous temples. Aditya I and Parantaka I were prolific builders for their faith. Inscriptions of Aditya I record that he built a number of temples along the banks of the river Kaveri. These temples were much smaller in comparison to the huge monumental structures of the later Cholas and were probably brick structures rather than stone. The Vijayalakalsvaram near Fudukkotte in Tamil Nadu is an example of a surviving early Chola building. The style of this structure clearly shows Pallava influences in the design. It has an unusual arrangement of a circular garbhagriha within a square prakara, circumambulatory corridor. Above this rises the vimana or the tower in four diminishing stories, of which the lower three are square and the top circular. Each level is separated from the next by a cornice. The whole structure is surmounted by a dome which in turn is topped with a stone kalasa, a crest. Very faint traces of paintings can be seen inside on the walls. These paintings are dated not earlier than the 17th century. Sastri, A History of South India, the little temple of Nageswara at Kumbakonam is also of the same period. Nilakanta Sastri, A History of South India, the Koranganatha temple at Srinivasanala near Hirapalli is an example of the period of Parantaka I. This temple is situated on the banks of the river Kaveri, and is a small temple with beautiful sculptures on every surface. The base of the wall has a row of sculpted mythical animals that were a unique feature of Chola architecture. The first floor is made of bricks which had been plastered. Nilakanta Sastri, Miyavakarville, Temple of Three, also in the Fudukkotte area, was built by a feudatory of Parantaka Chola II during the second half of the 10th century. As the name suggests, the temple complex has three main shrines standing side by side in a row, along the north-south direction, facing west. Out of these three, only two, the central and southern Vimanams, are now extant. Of the third or the northern shrine, the basement alone remains. The architectural style of these shrines exhibit clear concordance with the later Chola temples. Middle period, temple building received great impetus from the conquests and the genius of Rajaraja Chola and his son Rajendra Chola. A number of smaller shrines were built during the early phase of this period. Notable amongst these is the Turvalesvaram temple near Tirunelveli. The temple is covered with exquisite well-composed sculptures and friezes, some containing comic figures. The entire cornice of the temple tower is embellished with designs of creepers and foliage. Other examples of such temples can be seen at the Vaidyanath temple at Tirumala and the Uttara Kailasa temple at Thanjavur. The maturity and grandeur to which the Chola architecture had evolved found expression in the two magnificent temples of Thanjavur and Gangaikondapuram. The magnificent Shiva temple of Thanjavur, completed around 1009 CE, is a fitting memorial to the material achievements of the time of Rajaraja. The largest and tallest of all Indian temples, it is a masterpiece constituting the high watermark of South Indian architecture. It is in this temple that one notices for the first time two gopuras, towers oriented in the same direction. They are architecturally coeval with the main vimana and are referred to in inscriptions as Rajarajan Tiruvasil and Keralantakan Tiruvasil. In spite of the massive size of the gopuras, the vimana, rising majestically to a height of 190 feet, continues to dominate, and it is only in the subsequent period that a change in the gradation of magnitude takes place. Epigraphic evidence reveals that Rajaraja started building this temple in his 19th regnal year, and it was completed on 275th day of his 25th regnal year, taking only 6 years. Rajaraja named this temple as Rajarajasvaram and the deity Shiva in linga form as Paruvadaya. The temple is also known in the deity's name as Paruvadaya Kovil. In later period Maratha and Nalik's rulers constructed various shrines and gopurams of the temple. In later period, when the Sanskrit language was more popular during the Maratha rule, the temple was named in Sanskrit as Bridisvaram and the deity as Bridisvara. This temple carries on its walls the engraved evidence of the elaborate administrative and financial procedures concerning the day-to-day administration of the temple. The inscriptions give, apart from a comprehensive history of the times, a full enumeration of all the metallic images set up in the temple. Numbering about 66, these icons are referred to with a description of the minutest details of size, shape and composition. This alone is a mine of information for the art historian. The temple stands within a fort, whose walls are later additions built in the 16th century by the Naliks of Tanjore. The towering Vimanam is about 200 feet in height and is referred to as Dakshina Meru. The octagonal Shikaram rests on a single block of granite weighing 81 tons. It is believed that this block was carried up a specially built ramp built from a site 6 kilometers away from the temple. Huge Nandis dot the corners of the Shikaram, and the Kailasam on top by itself is about 3.8 meters in height. Hundreds of stucco figures bedewel the Vimanam, although it is possible that some of these may have been added on during the Maratha period. The main deity is a lingam and is a huge, set in a 2-storied sanctum, and the walls surrounding the sanctum delight visitors as a storehouse of murals and sculptures. The temple is built entirely of granite, interestingly, in a place where there is no source of granite. Though the temple of Gangaikondapuram follows the plan of the great temple of Thanjavur in most details, it has characteristics of its own. From the remains it may be seen that it had only one enclosure wall and a gopura, while the Thanjavur temple has 2 gopuras and enclosures. It is larger in plan though not as tall, the Vimana being 100 feet square at the base and 186 feet high. The temple, which forms a large rectangle 340 feet long and 110 feet wide, occupies the middle of an immense walled enclosure mainly built for defensive purposes. The Vimana has the same construction as in Thanjavur, but the number of tiers making up the pyramidal body is only 8 as against 13 in Thanjavur. The most important difference lies in the introduction of curves in the place of the strong straight lines of the Thanjavur Vimana. The pyramidal body is slightly concave in its outline at its angles, while the sides are curved to produce a somewhat convex outline. These curves enhance the beauty of form of the Vimana, though they distract from its stateliness and power. Later period. The Chola style continued to flourish for a century longer and expressed itself in a very large number of temples. Of these, 2 large temples are worthy of comparison to those of Rajaraja and Rajendra. The Iravathwara temple at Darasram near Thanjavur, built during the reign of Rajaraja Chola II, is a magnificent structure typical of the stage of architectural development reached in the 12th century CE. This temple has artistic stone pillars and decorations on its walls, in a style bordering on mannerism, with an emphasis on elongated limbs and polished features. Best among them are the dark black basalt figures in the temple niches of Dakshinamurti, the image on the southern side of Shiva in the teaching attitude, and to the west, Shiva erupting out of the pillar of light to convince Brahma and Vishnu of his superiority. The front mandapam is in the form of a huge chariot drawn by horses. The final example of this period is the Kampehsara temple at Tribhuvanam near Kumbakonam, which has survived in good repairs, built by Chola Chola III. The architecture of this temple is similar to the temples at Tanjore, Gangaykondapuram and Darasram. Sculpture and bronze. The Chola period is also remarkable for its sculptures and bronzes. Among the existing specimens in the various museums of the world and in the temples of South India, may be seen many fine figures of Shiva in various forms accompanied by his consort Parvati and the other gods, demigods and goddesses of the Saivite pantheon, Vishnu and his consort Lakshmi, the Niyamas, other Sava saints and many more. Though conforming generally to the iconographic conventions established by long tradition, the sculptor could also exercise his imagination within the boundaries of the canonical Hindu iconography and worked in greater freedom during the 11th and the 12th centuries. As a result, the sculptures and bronzes show classic grace, grandeur and perfect taste. The best example of this can be seen in the form of Nataraja, the divine dancer. Purpose of the icons. While the stone sculptures and the inner sanctum image empowering the temple remained immovable, changing religious concepts during the period around the 10th century demanded that the deities take part in a variety of public roles similar to those of a human monarch. As a result, large bronze images were created to be carried outside the temple to participate in daily rituals, processions, and temple festivals. The round lugs and holes found on the bases of many of these sculptures are for the poles that were used to carry the heavy images. The deities in bronze who participated in such festivities were sumptuously clothed and decorated with precious jewelry. Their every need and comfort were catered to by a battery of temple priests, musicians, cooks, devadas, administrators and patrons. The lay public thronged the processional route to have a darshan and admired their beloved deity for the lavish depiction of the figure and the grand costumes and jewelry. Although bronze casting has a long history in South India, a much larger and a much greater number of bronze sculptures in all sizes ranging from massive to miniature were cast during the Chola period than before, further attesting to the importance of bronze sculpture during this period. It should be noted that when in worship, these images are bedecked in silk costumes, garlands, and gem-encrusted jewels, befitting the particular avatar and religious context. Decorating temple bronzes in this way is a tradition at least 1,000 years old, and such decorations are referred to in 10th century Chola inscriptions. In recent times, many of these priceless Chola bronzes have been stolen from their temples or museums, smuggled out of India and have found their way into the private museums of art collectors. Lost wax technique. Chola period bronzes were created using the lost wax technique. It is known in artistic terms as Cire Pudu. The Sanskrit Shilpa texts call it the Madhyuchkishtavidena. Beeswax and condylium are mixed with a little oil and kneaded well. The figure is sculpted from this mixture, fashioning all the minute details. This is the wax model original. The entire figure is then coated with clay made from termite hills until the mold is of a necessary thickness. Then the whole thing is dried and fired in an oven with cow dung cakes. The wax model melts and flows out, while some of it vaporizes. The metal alloy of bronze is melted and poured into the empty clay mold. This particular bronze alloy is known as painchaluum. When the metal has filled all crevices and has settled and hardened and cooled, the mold is broken off. The bronze figure thus obtained is then cleaned, finer details are added, blemishes are removed, smoothened, and polished well. Hence each bronze icon is unique and the mold cannot be used to create copies. Elegant style. The forms of Chola bronzes are very plastic. They are devoid of intricate ornaments and designs in comparison with the subsequent bronzes of the Vijayanagar and Nayaka period. There is gentle grace, a restrained and quiet elegance, an ethereal, outworldly beauty, and above all else, a life that throbs and pulsates and thereby enlivens the bronze sculpture. By means of the facial expressions, the gestures or mudras, the overall body posture and other accompanying bronzes, we can imagine the surroundings and the religious context of the figure of the god or goddess. What instrument or weapon he or she is holding. What he or she is leaning on. And what he or she is doing or about to do. For example, in the Rishabhandika or the Vrishabhivahana Murthy pose, we see Shiva standing with one leg youthfully crossed across the other and his arm elegantly flexed and raised as if resting or leaning on something. In this elegant posture, it can be surmised that the youthful and athletic Shiva is leaning on his bull Vahana, Nandi, on whose shoulders he is resting his arm. The most famous of all the bronze icons is that of Nataraja or Udavala. The symbolism presents Shiva as lord of the cosmic dance of creation and destruction. He is active, yet aloof, like the gods on the Parthenon frieze. Surrounding Shiva, a circle of flames represents the universe, whose fire is held in Shiva's left rear palm. His left front arm crosses his chest, the hand pointing in elephant trunk position to his upraised left foot, which signifies liberation. His right foot tramples the dwarf Apasmara, who represents ignorance. Shiva's right front hand is raised in the fear not gesture of benediction, while his right rear hand holds a drum with which he beats the measure of the dance. The snake, an emblem of Shiva, curls around his arm. His hair holds the crescent moon, another emblem, and a small image of Ganges, the river goddess whose precipitous fall from heaven to earth is broken by Shiva's matted locks. Shiva as Nataraja or Udavala is also accompanied by his consort Sivikami. Chola fresco. In 1931, Chola frescoes were discovered within the circumambulatory corridor of the Bridisvara temple, by S. K. Govindasamy, a professor at the Annamalai University. These are the first Chola paintings discovered. The passage of the corridor is dark and the walls on either side are covered with 2 layers of paintings from floor to ceiling. Researchers have discovered the technique used in these frescoes. A smooth batter of limestone mixture is applied over the stones, which took 2 to 3 days to set. Within that short span, such large paintings were painted with natural organic pigments. During the Nyack period, the Chola paintings were painted over. The Chola frescoes lying underneath have an ardent spirit of Saivism as expressed in them. They probably synchronized with the completion of the temple by Radharaja Chola. Other crafts, the art of making ornaments of gold and precious stones had reached an advanced stage about the beginning of the 11th century. A large number of ornaments are mentioned in the Thanjavur inscriptions. Notes. References. External links, http, www.asiaseaduanlinekala htm, The Lost Wax Process. http, whc.unesco.org/ pg.cfm sid=31 id_site=250, http, books.guardian.co/01967587, html, http, www.varelaru.com, several articles related to Chola art and architecture, Vijayalakalsvaram, http, Fudukkote Ornatamalai/02 Natamalai html, Koranganatha Temple, http, www.tn.governor.htm, Bhadeswara Temple, http, www.thanjavur.com/ Bragoth.htm, Gangayakandakapram, http, Tamil Arts Academy Konkpuram cover html, Chola fresco, http, www.thebigtemple.com/ Frescoes.html, bronze sculpture of the Chola period, http, www.isiasocitamuseum.org/ region_results.asp ? Region =1 country =1 chapter =7, http, www.varelaru.com, Devotion in South India, Chola Bronzes, Asia Society Museum Exhibition.